daily life. That intellect, how, when it will perform good. As long as it has food, it will perform well. But if it has a feast, then it is going to perform in a much positive, powerful manner. That is called intellectual feast. That means we all take food every day, but there is a feast occasionally. So that feast is a special dinner with 10, 15 variety of food starting from appetizer to dessert, right? Similarly, when my intellect gets a feast, that is called intellectual feast, and it has enormous power. And how to unlock the power of intellectual feast, that is what we are going to discuss for next 40 minutes. Now, why we have to know, why we have to give feast to our intellect, or what is the power of intellectual feast? Then only I need to decide whether I have to unlock it or leave it like that. So, what are the powers of intellectual feast? On one Friday, when husband went for lunch table, wife had served, the lady's finger. Using the lady's finger curry, gravy, lady's finger means there are 3 or 4 varieties of dishes using lady's finger. So this guy asked his wife, "My dear, what happened? Yesterday, nowadays, last 2 months, every day you are having one dish by using lady's finger. What is the issue?" His wife replied, "Have you heard that if you eat lady's finger, intellect grows?" Oh, now I understand. You want to show to the entire world that your husband is so genius by eating lady's finger. Immediately, wife replied, "Cha cha cha, no way, impossible. What I want to prove to the world that eating lady's finger has no relationship with intellect. That is what I want to prove." If you just think for a minute, the significance of intellect on day-to-day life decides the degree of happiness we enjoy at home. So we all want to enjoy happily. We all want to live happily. That depends on how good my intellect is performing. So the intellectual feast is very, very important. The second most important thing is personal growth and development in all walks of life, not only health wise, finance wise, relationship wise, education wise, my abilities, my social activities. In all walks of life, I want to grow, I want to develop myself. Personal growth is little different from development. So if I have to be successful in my life, if I want to develop my skills or my assets, then I need to use my intellect. First, I need to have a proper intellect, powerful intellect. Then only I will take the right decision. And my decision decides what I am going to enjoy in my future. So, all my success, all my personal growth, all my personal development depends on how powerful my intellect is functioning. And the third is, for all that, you need powerful brain functionality like creativity, receptivity, adaptability, magnanimity, perspicacity. Maharishi says these 5 qualities are very important, and these are all the results of brain functionality. Now, we all know that if somebody has creativity, the management concept says think outside the box. Even if a small problem is there, think outside the box to solve the problem. And even if somebody wants to run a tea stall, if he makes a tea as everybody does, he cannot be successful. But if he applies some creativity on his job, then obviously success is very easy, and he can prosper in his life. So the brain functionality should be improved. For that, our intellect should be powerful. For the intellect to be powerful, intellect needs food, not just food, feast. How often we give feast to our intellect? So that is the power of intellectual feast. And another most important thing, my physical health, mental health, spiritual health, social health, all that depends on my intellect. If I have so many intellectual fees to my intellect is going to help me for better good health, better positive health, better mental health, better emotional health, social health, all that. So for all that health aspects also, I have to have good, powerful intellect. Now, how to unlock the power of intellectual feast? Now, if you search in Google, intellectual feast, or maybe you can search, I don't know, how to unlock the power of intellectual feast. I don't know, something comes up or not, but intellectual feast, I searched it. You can search it. And they give 3 or 4 techniques to feast our intellect. Means how to do intellectual feast. We are not going to discuss any of that. What Maharishi thinks about it, what Maharishi said about that. That is what we are going to discuss it. But that is also equally important. What Western scholars have given as the feast for our intellect. Because Maharishi never mentioned, at least to my knowledge, anywhere that all those few techniques, what Western scholars are telling, is not a feast or is not going to give benefit to us. He never said that. So I will assume that it is also not assume. I know that it is equally good. So the first method for intellectual feast is listening to lectures like this. So we all say that in Tamil Sindanai Virundu, intellectual feast. All such lectures, satsangs, when you are hearing so many things, and if the lecture is stimulating your thought process, your thinking faculty, then definitely it is a feast for your intellect. We are talking not much, means, first of all, what is intellect? Intellect is nothing but the thinking ability of mind. Thinking faculty of mind is intellect. So if any lecture triggers your thought process, then it is a feast for your intellect. So, listening lectures, seminars is one way to feast our intellect. Number one, intellectual feast technique. Another way of intellectual feast is by reading books. Mahatma Gandhi is not with us, but his books are there. Maharishi is not with us, but his books are there. If you read such great books, definitely you will be able to think more deeper why the author had said like that. What is the reason for it? Actually, when you read books also, unless you ask that question, why not? Intellect, it is not going to be a feast for intellect. If I read Maharishi's book like reading a newspaper, definitely it is just a knowledge. It is not a feast for our intellect. So reading books is definitely another good way of intellectual feast, provided you apply those techniques like why not, things like that. So searching good books in a library is a great opportunity for our intellectual feast. And the third technique, what Western scholars are telling for intellectual feast is engaging in deep and meaningful conversation with great scholars. like Maharishi, maybe. I had an opportunity to meet with Maharishi in his room. But whenever I went to his room to meet Maharishi, I always carried some questions to ask him. I never asked any of those questions which I went to meet him, means before I saw him, but I asked some other question. Okay. When the moment I saw Maharishi, all my, in fact, intellect went to the subtle state or, slave state. I just nodded, whatever he says, I answered. That's all my conversation. So it was not a feast in terms of triggering the thought process. But I asked a question. He really, it was a feast. Only one question, which was an unplanned question, because Balachandra sir, every time I met him, while coming down from his room, Balachandra sir, I used to tell him, sir, when I saw him, I couldn't ask my doubt. You please ask and clarify. So I think one time Balachandra sir showed through his eyes, you wanted to ask a question, ask, like that. I asked a question, but totally unplanned question. The way he answered was a feast for my intellect. So this may not be possible for all of us at all times, but engaging in deep and meaningful conversation with great scholars is another technique of intellectual feast. Whenever there is an opportunity, we should use of that. This is These three techniques are being told by Western scholars to feed our intellect. But what Maharishi had said about it as a feast for our intellect, I think I have read most of the poems at least twice so far. I could not remember any poem where he has mentioned as feast for our intellect except one place. And when I read that, I realized, oh my God, so this could be the real, genuine, powerful, special feast to our intellect. But he used that word, uh, uh, special feast for our intellect. Before we jump to what is that feast, if we have to understand few concepts before we go for it. First of all, we have to understand the difference between mind, intellect, and consciousness. And then where intellect is seated, where from the intellect is functioning. Science is still trying to search where intellect or consciousness is seated. And then we will jump to Maharishi's technique for intellectual feast. Then we will be able to understand the concept thoroughly. Okay, now let's understand what is the difference between mind, intellect, and consciousness. I think I have given example in the past about the difference between mind, intellect, and consciousness. For example, the rainwater, which is which is in the purest form. That rainwater, when it falls on my water tank and then it is distributed to my house, when I get that rainwater in a tape in the kitchen, definitely that water is not as pure as the rainwater, because the tank had some dirt on it, and in the pipe there could be a lot of other corrosive or erosive iron particles or dust particles, all that are mixed with water. And now I can assume it is a pure water, but it is not a pure water, but I use as a drinking water. There is a difference, substantial difference between pure rainwater and my tap water. Similarly, the rainwater falls on ocean and the rainwater becomes salty. If the rainwater falls on a river, it becomes river water. And if it falls on a uh, dirty flow of waste, and it becomes waste. It is no longer, you can't even segregate that rainwater from the wastewater, right? So where the pure, absolute, pure rainwater falls, it gets transformed based on the quality of the place where it falls. Similarly, the pure rainwater is consciousness. We know that divine is consciousness. The divine has total consciousness, cosmic consciousness. That total consciousness, we call that as consciousness. But when that rainwater become functional in terms of usage by people like us, then it becomes a tape water. In that process, evolution process, it got some blemishes, it got some dirt in it. Now that consciousness, total consciousness, got corrupted, and it is called as limited consciousness, or you can call that as intellect or buddhi. So the consciousness in monkey is, we don't call that as consciousness, we call that as, don't you, do you have monkey's buddhi? So it is the buddhi which is functioning in monkey is different from the buddhi which is functioning in tiger or lion or human being. So where that consciousness rainwater falls, stays, it takes a different character according to that intellect functions. So intellect is nothing but the limited consciousness, fractional consciousness of total consciousness. Because the fractional consciousness, I don't want to use that word, because fraction means one portion of total consciousness. But it, strictly speaking, it is one portion but corrupted, right? So we can call that as intellect. So now we know the difference between intellect and consciousness. Then what is mind? Mind has two functions. One is thinking and feeling. That's all. Mind has two functions. One is thinking faculty and feeling faculty. When I was talking to you, I feel there is an ant on my right toe. I can feel it. So the mind is responsible for that. At the same time, what I am thinking is a function of mind as well. The thinking faculty of mind is called intellect. That's all. So there is a marginal difference between mind, intellect, and consciousness, but that marginal difference is so powerful. And the purpose of our birth is to remove that marginal differences and make our intellect, limited consciousness, to the level of total consciousness. That is the purpose of our birth. That is called perfection, enlightenment of consciousness. Because the limited consciousness is corrupted, remove that blemishes, enlighten it to the divine consciousness level, and then we are one with the divinity. Whatever I think it is going to happen, what is possible only I will think, I will have a blissful life. And that is the purpose of birth. Right. So now we know the difference between mind, intellect, and consciousness. Now let's go to the second important question. Where is the seat of intellect? Where it is seated? Because the rainwater falls on a wastewater or a tumbler or a ocean. We have to know where it falls, where it is. So where it is seated. Till now, science is not able to find the location of consciousness. Mostly the scientific community accepted that the seat of consciousness is in brain. But I will put one simple question. When a baby is formed in mother's womb, just 1 day old, or 2 weeks old, or 4 weeks old, after 4 weeks of the conception of the womb, only brain starts growing, developing. Until 4 weeks, there is no brain for that fetus. Then who is growing, what caused the fetus to grow in mother's womb. So other than brain, something else is having that consciousness, and it knows I have to produce a baby like a human baby, not like a dog or a chicken. So the consciousness is not only in brain, somewhere else also. Maharishi has an excellent answer for it. The seat of consciousness is life force particles. That's all. Our body has millions and millions of life force particle, which is spinning on its own, circulating throughout the body, and the center of life force particle is the seat of consciousness. Now, if the life force particle is in monkey's body, then the consciousness will function like monkey. If the life force particle is in tiger, then the intellect of tiger will be like a tiger, because the consciousness, sorry, the intellect of tiger is in the life force of the tiger particle. So the seat of intellect is in life force particle. That means, how can we give feast to that intellect which is located at the center of life force particle? That is the question. That is where we are trying to understand in today's discussion. Now, in human being, the intellect has all the qualities of animal as well as the quality of divine also. Many times the intellect is functioning like an animal, because wife is saying from kitchen, breakfast is ready, breakfast is ready. I am shouting like a dog 100 times. Don't you hear? Wife is shouting. And the husband is very cool and he is telling, I don't know the language of dog. So I don't know what you are shouting. Now, the intellect of that lady, the intellect of that husband, both are functioning like an animal. That animal is like a tiger. This animal is like a soft animal. That's all. So typically, like a villain, both intellects are working at that particular situation. So my intellect is functioning like a villain or a hero, with quality of, nowadays the heroes are villains in many movies. I am just referring old movies, not recent movies. Okay. So now, whether my intellect is like with divine quality or animal quality, that depends on the quality of life force particle I have within myself. As simple as that. So if I have to give feast to my intellect, two choices: give orange juice, good food or good feast, or give alcohol. Maybe that intellect will enjoy that alcohol, but it is, maybe he feels it's a good feast, because nowadays the parties are not considered as party without alcohol. So the real feast needs that alcohol as well. So the definition of feast itself, we have to say, that's why the feast is the genuine feast, special feast, powerful feast. Okay. Now the genuine feast. If it is orange juice, the guy is so happy, and not alcohol, because if it is alcohol, Maharishi says the intellect will be in the sleep mode, forgetful state. The intellect will function as a slave to my feelings. Wife is shouting, I will also shout. Simple. The intellect is not really getting any good food, but rather it got alcohol. When somebody take alcohol, he doesn't know whether he has the dhoti. He doesn't know about himself. So when somebody is in a forgetful state, like a drunkard person, the intellect is a slave to the feelings. And Maharishi says that. So the good feast, what is good feast? Genuine feast. And that is what we have to know. I think the Zoom screen is not staying in one place for me. Okay, fine. So now, what is good feast for my intellect? This is where Maharishi has unique place among many other great sages or Mahans. When I read this particular statement about intellectual feast, I really stopped it and I could not believe, my God, all Western scholars are talking about this, but how Maharishi is able to get that particular technique as intellectual feast. And if you understand what Maharishi says, you will also accept that is a real, genuine, powerful, special feast to our intellect. Now let's understand what is that intellectual feast. Now, we give food to the intellect or feast to the intellect. That depends on we give food or feast, give to life force particle in my body. My life force particle, if I give feast and good feast, it is going to perform good. So now, what is the feast for my life force particle? That is what we need to find out. And we all know that, we all have learned from Kayakalpa that our life force particles are coming from four different sources: food, air, planet, the center of earth. The food what we eat converted into seven dhatus and the life force particle. And air, prana shakti is there. So we get akash particle, we get life force particle. Earth, the center of earth, atomic fission is happening. Now, because of atomic fission, millions and millions of Akash particles are thrown out because of the law of thermodynamics. And that Akash particles are passing through us. And the body can absorb those Akash particles free of charge without any difficulty if we keep the door open. And that Akash particle is coming from Earth. And Akash particles are coming from all the planet and stars in our around us. So all are Akash particle, all are life force particle. What Maharishi says in that article, we believe keeping our stomach always full is the right thing to do. Maharishi says it is a wrong concept. We should never keep our stomach full. If we keep our stomach full all the time, there are two issues which is coming out. Number one, we get deficiency diseases. Diseases you can classify into two types. One is the malfunction of organs. Because of that, heart is not functioning 100%, 60% blocked, whatever. That is one type of disease. The other type of disease is deficiency diseases. If I have iron deficiency, there is a special problem. If I have vitamin A deficiency, eye problem. B complex deficiency, another problem. So these deficiency diseases will come if my stomach is always full. And what Maharishi suggests that based on the physical body condition and the condition of intellect, body should attract appropriate proportions of Akash particle from air, earth, planets, and then food. If that proportion is appropriate based on his body condition and intellectual condition, then deficiency diseases will not come. Number one. And he also says enlightenment of consciousness is very, very difficult to achieve. Why? Because if our stomach is full, that means we are not taking Akash particle from air, planet, and earth. Only from food, because stomach is full all the time. If that is the case, our intellect will function only to the earthly matters, the worldly matters. That too, particularly focusing on food, work, rest, sex, thought, money, name and fame, power, and the people, sensual enjoyment. All these worldly matters only, my intellect will keep focusing on that only. But enlightenment of consciousness, self realization, divine realization is only possible if my intellect goes beyond the body level, earthly level. Then only we can realize the presence of divinity everywhere, everything. So, for that, intellect should get a proper feast. And that feast will be available only if the body attracts correct proportion of Akash particle from food, earth, planet, and air. What to do for that? Maharishi says, you keep 1 hour with hungry feeling. The moment you get hungry feeling, don't eat anything for 1 hour. In that 1 hour period, body attracts the required proportion of Akash particle from air, earth, and planet, and then I go for food. E required amount of energy will be taken from food also. This only can be the excellent, genuine, special, powerful feast to the intellect. This is what Maharishi said this in that particular. It is just one line. In that line, he says that it is an intellectual feast. Like that in Tamil, it says. I don't know what is there in English. So, the essence of today's lecture is if you want to unlock the power of intellectual feast, we have to eat after 1 hour from the feelings of hungry. Then it will be a feast for our intellect. That intellect will function with the divine qualities, not with animal qualities. This is number one. As I had said in the beginning, I could not recall or remember anywhere else Maharishi talked about intellectual feast in any of the poem or in any of the article. Though I have not read some of his books yet, so I just whatever I read, I am just saying it. So I started thinking: is this the only feast for our intellect? Now, if I apply all Maharishi's concept, I think of three more other techniques which could be a potential technique for intellectual feast. You will be able to conclude whether what I am going to share is correct or wrong. You will, I'm sure you will accept it. You will agree to that. Now, what is that other techniques of intellectual feast? Though Maharishi did not tell directly about all that. The second one, the quality of life force particle depends on the quality of food we take. If somebody takes rajasic food, the person's intellect will have arrogant behavior. He will be short tempered. And why is that? Because the quality of that food is passed to the quality of Akash particle, which is derived from the food what we eat. So the quality of Akash particle depends on the quality of food we take. Now the quality of Akash particle, the life force particle, decide whether that is going to be a genuine feast to the intellect which is sitting on the center of Akash particle. If the Akash particle has alcohol, consciousness, sorry, the intellect, will drink that alcohol because it is there. It is seated there, right? You know, in horoscope, astrology, there are 12 uh, rashis or 12 houses, right? And if Jupiter, planet, see what they do at the time of birth, astrologer marks the position of every planet in the horoscope. Jupiter is in which Rashi, which house. So he marks it. That is the birth time horoscope. That tells me about my life. If the planet Jupiter is there in the second house of horoscope for some person at the time of birth, now that person, I would say 99% it is correct because I have checked lot of horoscopes of sages, Maharishis, great scholars. They speak the truth. They speak like a sage. They speak like a jnani. Means the content, the means whatever they tell, it is the words of divinity. They are called. They are like gurus. They are gurus. Simple. They are gurus. If the planet Saturn is there, Shani is there in the second house, not Jupiter. Now that person, he will tell lot of lies. You have to, if he speaks 1,000 words, maybe 10 could be the true truth. The rest all lies. So who is a liar? Normally, the astrologer we find from we find from the second house. If Saturn is there, we don't need to trust that guy 50%, 60%. Of course, the horoscope tells the Sanchita karma. If the parents have done some good karma, he will come to Sky Center or any spiritual organization and he can change as well. And that is why those who are in the spiritual path, this horoscope need not work at all. Okay, now, if Mars is there in the second house, for example, he will be a short-temper person. If you ask him, what's the time? Why, you don't have a watch? He will tell with angry voice. So, where the planet is situated, the behavior changes. Similarly, where the intellect is seated and where Akash particles are getting the food, what type of food, the quality changes. So, the feast depends on what kind of food we eat. So, if somebody takes sattvic food, definitely it is going to be a feast for our intellect. That is a second technique. A third technique, we all know that there is a time called Brahma Muhurta time, right? Brahma Muhurta period, 4 to 6. Why? The universal magnetism is so pure in that time. And we are supposed to do mirror gazing meditation and lamp gazing practice in that time. Why Maharishi has given us without telling us directly, he is giving feast by that practices. So if someone can do that practice at least weekly once or weekly twice, we think we get biomagnetism from the universal magnetism. In fact, it is a feast for our intellect if we apply that concept, what I read in that article about intellectual feast, right? Because it's a pure energy, pure Akash particle, which we are taking it from universe by the special practice of mirror gazing and lamp gazing. And obviously, it is going to be the feast for my intellect. So that is a third technique. Now, the fourth technique. Maharishi has written a poem. In that, the poem, I will translate it in English. Listen each word. carefully. The poem is very clear. Why it could be the feast for our intellect. Okay. Give rest to your intellect. That is your rest. Give rest to your intellect. That is your rest. Rest for intellect increases your energy level. Rest for your intellect increases your energy level. Base for intellect. Base for intellect. That is the seat of intellect. Not seat, the foundation. The base for intellect is the divinity, absolute space. Thinking of absolute space only is consciousness. Complete research confirms this. Means he has done complete research, and that confirmed that thinking of absolute space only is consciousness. Now, what Maharishi is talking about in this poem, we always keep thinking something, and that is not a feast for intellect. It functions. There are many people who get dreams in the sleep also. So that means again it is working because we remember it, what I saw in the dream. So that means intellect is working. Otherwise, I will not be able to recall. I will not be able to think about it. So give rest to the intellect. If I give rest to the intellect, energy increases. That means if energy increases, my intellect is gaining more power. And the third line says the base for intellect is the divinity. Now, what we discussed, the intellect is seated in life force particle. And the life force particle center, what is at its center? Divinity. Absolute space is at its center. So, in a way, the base for intellect is the divinity. Now, if I give rest to the divine intellect, when intellect is not doing anything, then intellect and the divinity become one. And that alone, that thinking alone is called consciousness. Now, the limited consciousness will become one with the total consciousness when I give rest to my intellect. And that would be the best, genuine, powerful feast to the intellect. And that is why Maharishi has given us Turiyatit meditation, by which we are practicing ourselves without any thoughts in that absolute space. We are dissolving and getting frozen at absolute space. And that is a complete rest for intellect. At that time, it become one with a total consciousness. And that is the real feast for it. If we can give that real feast every day, twice, for 5 minutes, when we do half an hour meditation, definitely our intellect gets the feast and our intellect is getting enlightened 100% guaranteed, right? So there are four techniques. Only one technique was straight away said by Maharishi: eat after 1 hour of hunger feelings. Two, sattvic food. Third, mirror gazing, lamp gazing at Brahma Muhurta time. Fourth is give rest to the intellect. And let me conclude here by saying another great statement of our scientist Einstein, Albert Einstein. Einstein says, intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Whatever we read from the books, whatever we do, all that is going to logical mind. As I said, thinking faculty of mind is intellect. So there is no difference, right? Thinking faculty of mind. the logical mind. But Einstein says there is a mind called intuitive mind, sacred gift. We never feed to that intuitive mind. If we can give a feast to our intellect, the power of intuition develops. And that helps us every minute for our decisions so that we build our future. We decide what I have to do and how I can live a blissful life. So, such a feast for your intellect, let the divine provide to all of you. With that, let me conclude my speech today. Thank you. Thank you so much.